All right, so welcome. Today's presentation, we're actually doing First Presbyterian Church and Angelus are doing together, just trying to add an extra component of support and resources for the community. With everything that's been happening these last few months, people are struggling. They're a lot overwhelmed, and we're always having constantly changing news coming at us and what we can do and what we can't do, who we can be next to, who we can't be by. It's getting a little exhausting, so wanted to go through just a little bit of history of what's happening with our bodies and some ideas of techniques and strategies that we can try to kind of just cope through it and to become our best selves as we get through this process. I am going to go through a series of slides, just giving some information, but then wanting to actually demonstrate to practice some different techniques and encourage anybody who's watching this, whether it is watching it live or watching it on a replay, to go through and do those techniques in real time as I'm doing them and seeing what may be beneficial or not for your circumstance. Okay. So the plan for the evening, first off, my name is Nessa Wilson. I am the director at Angelus Therapeutic Services, and it's a counseling agency in Newcastle. And we've been working with so many of our clients on just adapting with COVID, handling a lot of the stress and changes, both that's happened with people with employment, changes that have happened in their ability to be social, to get out, to spend times with friends and family, worries about health, and there's been other significant events happening these last few months as well that seems to become a frequent conversation topic. So we're going to use some of that and bring that into this element. And again, just going over some of those basics, understanding the impact that stress, anxiety, and the management of emotions has on our day-to-day self and on our physical health, long-term effects, short-term effects, and going through kind of just the four elements of wellness, which is your mindset, self-care, looking into some different types of mindfulness skills and how we get our focus, how that affects things, and some utilization of positive supports. One of the big phrases that we seem to be saying a lot to people is that with everything going on right now, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have good days and it's okay to have bad days. You might have days where everything feels great, you're motivated, you want to be outside in the yard, you want to work in the garden, you want to absorb as much sunshine as possible. And there may be other days you want to draw all the shades, eat a bucket of ice cream, and just pretend nothing exists. We go up and down, and that's 100% normal. We do not have a reference base for what we're going through now. This is not a situation that we have likely been in before individually or as a society. And with all of the social media and the news and all the disputing perspectives of what's good for us and what's not good for us or what's okay can make us feel exceptionally frazzled. And one of the reasons that the church had approached wanting to do this type of webinar and make this more accessible to the community is a significant reminder that we are all going through this. And we all may feel alone at times, but we are in this together. Everybody is working their way through figuring this out, figuring out the changes and the impact of their world. This is one of those situations and scenarios that is affecting us all universally. And when that happens, we all have different natural responses. We have responses based on our own history. We have responses based on the support systems that we're used to or the amount of challenges that we may or may not have had at different points in time. The big concepts that we're really seeing hitting a peak right now is obviously the pandemic impact with the COVID-19, whereas if it's the way that it's affecting us with concerns about actually getting sick or family members getting sick, if we have elderly or the physically vulnerable around us, there's a lot of worries about virus spreading and where can I go and where can I not go. It's also had a significant impact on people just as far as their routines, their ability to go to work and know at the end of the week they're going to have a steady 40-hour paycheck. I know I'm going to be able to pay my bills. I'm going to be able to have the predictability and the reliability of a job that I depend on, or that my family members are going to be okay. They're going to be able to continue to support themselves with so many people still not working or working at very limited levels. And the other big impacts is going and doing like social events. Some of the churches are starting to open and do services. And now we're having the question mark, are we going to go red again? So what does that mean as we're beginning to slowly take some baby steps out and try new things and be around people? It's coming back at us that maybe that's not what we're ready for yet. And I see anxiety going through the roof for so many people because they're not sure what the right decisions are. And just getting the constant barrage of information is completely overwhelming to the system. Over the last couple months, there's also been a lot in the forefront as far as racism and protests. In Newcastle, we've had multiple protests, and then all have gone very peacefully. But there was a lot of concern for people beforehand of were they going to turn violent, as have in some bigger city areas. What kind of emotional responses that could create, what kind of responses that create for the community, no matter what side a person is on as far as their history and their experience or their race. It is something that is very forefront in, I guess, a lot of the conversations, a lot of the interactions with other people, and our sense of safety and security. So when we talk about all this, we have tons of emotions that could be surfacing and colliding with each other. I put this emotions wheel up as a reminder that there are so many different types of ways to feel. You know, what might start out as scared for one person might be displayed as overwhelmed, but to another person, it may be displayed as very angry or aggressive, very protective. Being able to not only identify what you're feeling, but how you're feeling it and how it is being expressed to the people around you, or how it's being expressed to the people that mean the most to you. How are they feeling? Are what they saying what they're actually experiencing on the inside? And just trying to weeding our way through that. Being able to identify the triggers for a variety of emotions. There are a lot of thoughts that can be going through our mind as we're thinking about the current circumstances. Thoughts about not being safe, about not being able to protect people, about not being able to be the strong person or the provider for the family, about not having a sense of control as to whether a person can run into a store and back out without having to think through, do I have my mask? Do I have my sanitizer? Do I have my list? Am I going to stay 6 feet away from people? All of those things can cause a lot of stress and impact, and it can cause some cascading negative thoughts, which then impacts our physical self and our relationships with other people. So what that I wanted to bring up and kind of just show is a little bit about the cycle of anxiety, how what is going on around us is affecting us on the inside and out. A lot of times when we talk about, stress levels or we talk about traumas, we talk about fight or flight. And just the concept that when something big and significant happens, we automatically, on a biological level, respond in certain ways. Our body is a fascinating and amazing thing, and it is pre-programmed to keep us safe as much as it can in any and all circumstances. So when it perceives a danger, whether it's a physical danger or an emotional danger, it kickstarts the system to do whatever necessary to get you out of that danger. I refer to this a lot of times as the wild tiger scenario. We see a wild tiger, our body says, okay, he might eat me. I need to get out of this situation as fast as possible, or I have to fight this tiger off. What am I going to do to keep myself safe? Where can I run? Where can I hide? What can I use as a weapon? If we were in the middle of a wild tiger scenario, we would be going through all of those thought patterns, and we'd be going through them fairly quickly. But in addition to the thought patterns, our body is changing a lot of things. Our eyes go into tunnel vision. Our lungs start breathing faster, trying to oxygenate our muscles. Our muscles get very tense in response to, having to either fight something or run quickly. Our heart starts beating faster to kind of get that blood supply to everything. Our stomach stops digesting. Our bladder changes. We create tons of adrenaline and cortisol, which is our stress chemical, which can have a tendency to make us faster, stronger, whatever it needs to be for a very short period of time. You see situations on the news where a car falls on a child and the mother is just miraculously able to pull that car up and pull her child out. Any other circumstances, there is no way that she would have the strength to do that. But when you are kicked into a flight or fight scenario, you get supercharged. Your body becomes much stronger, much faster, much more alert for that very short period of time. Because theoretically, if you are fighting or running away from a tiger, you're going to burn off all of that and be absolutely exhausted in the end. When we're talking about social stressors and pandemic or changes in support systems, or just having to be super anxious of what's going to happen when I go to Walmart in this new universe we're working on, you're creating all of those same chemicals. Your body is responding in the same way as it would be if there was a wild tiger after you, but it is having no outlet for all of those chemicals in your system. So what it tends to do is build up inside of us, makes us feel very anxious, very on edge, very exhausted. A simple thing of I'm going to take the trip to Walmart, or I'm going to go try to meet friends for dinner, or I'm going to see what elements that I'm going to be able to be out and active in. But now I'm either completely exhausted and I don't feel like going, or I'm feeling completely worn out for the next several days. It's trying to figure out how to balance that cycle of anxiety, going from that nervous system being activated by whatever is coming in, processing through the way we're thinking about things, which then impacts how we feel, how we respond, how we act. And then that comes back and then gives our body new or different information, which can either calm us down or it could amplify things. What we're going to be going over today and work on practicing is those types of interventions that we can plug in to decrease that nervous system activation and kind of calm down that fight or flight and going into more of a sense of rest and digest, which is when the body is just happily chugging along and processing the way it was built to, when it's not fighting some type of mortal danger or fear. So what I have up here is a simple stress test. Some neurologists or fancy scientist people came up with it halfway across the globe, but it's kind of neat. If you look at the picture and you just take your first look at it, what is it doing? Is it a static picture? Is it perfectly still? Do you see it moving? Do you see it looking like the purple is turning? Is it turning slowly? Is it moving super fast like a carousel? When they developed this, what's kind of cool, and I don't understand how it works, and I will admit that, it is an indicator of how stressed you are, how your eyes are perceiving the information coming in. The slower it's moving, the calmer you are. If it's moving super fast, which unfortunately the first time I saw it is an indication of being very highly stressed. It's just an indicator to kind of make us more aware of ourselves so we can decide, okay, what do I want to do with that? If I can notice that I'm stressed, whether it's I'm looking at a visual cue or I've learned to pay attention to my body, I notice that my muscles are tight, that my heart is beating faster, that I'm finding myself clenching or unclenching my fist, or I'm noticing that my temperament is far shorter than it normally is. I'm feeling snappy to the people that I care about. I find myself craving sweets and carbs and all of those self-calming, yummy foods. It's an indicator of high stress. And it's like, okay, I see it. I identify it there. Now what do we do with that? I'm going to go through four type of elements of positive emotional wellness. First is going to be mindset. So the concept that where our thoughts go, everything else follows. When we look at a situation and we have hope and we have promise and we have positive expectation, we tend to be more excited, calmer, our energy levels go up. When we look at a situation and we're making some automatic assumptions of failure or that things are going to go bad or that there's danger, we're more tired, we're more tense. Our whole body responds to that. We can do a lot to shape our thoughts, but it does take active work because we train our thoughts to follow certain routines. The second quadrant is going to be self-care. The amount and importance of care you take of your body and your emotional and spiritual self. Being able to take care of the way I feel, the way I connect, and the way I use boundaries in a healthy way. Mindfulness skills is something that's a pretty common term these days, goes along with like meditation and just slowing down the mind and the body to let it reset. We're going to do several exercises that are going to be falling underneath that realm. And the last area is not as much stuff that we're able to do here today. This is an element of support. The First Presbyterian had taken the initiative of wanting to put an additional level of support out there for the community, and we were very happy to join them with that. But it's being able to create those supports in your normal daily interactions. Humans were built for in-person interactions. Our entire system was built that way. We are physically and emotionally more whole when we're connected with other people. Our bodies respond differently when we have connection. Okay, so first one, let's look at mindset. Let's look at how we look at things and how it impacts who we are and how we feel. I had found this graphic that I thought was pretty useful for the COVID-19 situation in particular, kind of looking at where are you finding yourself most at. When all of this started happening in March, there were so many people stuck in the fear zone for obvious reasons. We had no idea what to expect. We had no idea what was going on. So everybody is running to the store, grabbing as much toilet paper as they can, calling each other, talking about it, tweeting, Facebooking, all the other social media elements. It was constantly on the news. It was constantly around us. And, finding ourselves getting mad easier, getting frustrated. And as time went on, hopefully we started spending less time focusing on those thought patterns as we saw, okay, this stuff is significant and it is serious, but life is still going on in the midst of it. And I have to figure out how to survive and live and learn inside of that new scenario. So then we moved into the learning zone, that being able to identify what can I control and what can't I control. If I can't control it, can I release it? Can I hand it over to let somebody else take control for those moments? Can I, put limits on how much I'm consuming what is getting me more stressed out or more hurt? Can I step away from the incoming news sources? Can I step away from the trips back and forth to the freezer for the ice cream or the candy bars or the potato chips, all of those self-soothing foods? Can I identify how I'm feeling? Can I process when things are coming in, both what's stressful, but maybe being able to identify what might be overblown or overdone, or I'm making all of these negative judgments. Maybe I'm starting to identify that I don't need to have negative judgments about everything. There are some things that are very stressful and negative, but I'm also able to look at what's going well and what can I gain, what can I connect, what am I grateful for in this moment. From there, we move out even further to what would be the growth zone. Hopefully, a lot of us are moving towards this, but when different things happen, when we get new information, when we get a fear or a spark, we can easily get moved back to that fear zone. But in the growth zone, I'm looking at not just how is this affecting myself. Am I able to be empathetic with myself? Am I able to give myself support? Am I able to be supportive to other people? Am I able to be focusing on the present and the future? Being able to say, okay, right now things are very stressful, but I'm looking forward to getting outside, and these flowers will be blooming in July, and this will be occurring in August. I enjoy being in the pool. I'm looking forward to finding ways to adapt to what we have on our plates. I'm learning new technologies. I'm learning how to use the cameras on my phone, or utilize Zoom, or having virtual counseling, or teleworking from home. I've had a lot of people who were real stressed out about so many changes, and especially like having to work from home and figure out the dynamic in the house, especially if there's kids around. And now they're like, it's awesome. I have a 5-minute commute through the day, and that means I get to stop at the bathroom, go to the coffee pot, fill up my cup, go to the desk, and they have a system going on. They'd like to get back to the office. They'd like to get back to those interactions with other people, but they're finding systems of how to make it work in the present. Being able to look for the people that are helping around you, and for how you can be one of those helpers to other people. You might be doing really good. You might be having a day where you are completely in the growth zone. You are on point. You are feeling hopeful. You're spreading that hope. You're, just powering through, and you're seeing people that are struggling. Give them a hand. Give them extra support, extra understanding, because there's going to be the days where that is going to be completely switched. You're going to feel exhausted. You're going to need the support and encouragement from the people around you. And we want to make sure that we are keeping those right people around us. Right now, we are seeing a lot about people's base natures. We're seeing the people that are able to pull through, and we're seeing some people that are maybe going towards more toxic elements. They're looking at the things that are more frustrating and getting irritable more easily, and then they're kind of spreading that toxic nature out. And that's fear zone related. That is understandably, they're afraid. They're not sure what to do. But too much of that can pull you right back in. It can make us feel like we're drowning. One of the most important concepts when we're talking about mindset and focus and choices is boundaries. Boundaries for yourself and boundaries for other people. Finding ways to be able to say, I love you, I care about you, but today, right now, for this 5 minutes, I need a break. Whether you're able to pull the other person into a more positive element with you, whether you're able to say, how about we watch this movie, or we read this book, or we look at the scripture, or we pull some element that can be full of a little bit more positivity to get you both through, or if you have to take a temporary break from a person so that you can feel like you can breathe again. We're learning a lot of elements of self-care that we never had to do before. So when we talk about self-care and we talk about mindsets, one of the things I come back to is affirmations, how you start your day, the words that you feed your soul with, the words that you feed your internal self with. And these are cheesy, and I fully admit and disclose that they're super cheesy. But it is amazing that they actually can change your brain. They change the way you feel about yourself in situations. An affirmation is just simply stated, it is a positive statement about yourself in that direction that you want to be heading your life, or that you would like to be feeling about yourself. It is present tense. It is I am. And it could be very, very simple of, I am able to get through this. I am stronger with the right supports. I have the strength inside of me to be more than just this moment. I am able to accomplish what I set my mind to. I would encourage a simple assignment is to try to come up with 2 to 3 positive statements and affirmations to make about yourself. And I repeat that, make about yourself. An affirmation isn't about someone else's positive elements. It's not, I believe that this person means the best and I want this other person to do good or to change their personality or this global situation to get better. It is about who you are, and how you're handling. And a lot of times it's adding that action word. So it's like, I am strong and I am able to get through things. I am building myself as I go forward. Pick, make, cheat. Google has thousands upon thousands upon thousands of cheating affirmations, of ideas of how to start with this. Being able to just pick 2 to 3 that you're like, I don't really feel that way, but that's how I want to feel. And I think that it could be realistic if I was getting in that mindset. It's not going to be, I am a track star. That'll never be true for me. But I am a strong human being. I am a positive person. I am worthy. I am connected. Those are things that absolutely are true. And when we tell ourselves those things and when we repeat those things to ourselves, we're actually creating neural networks inside of our brain that start to believe it. We moved from a fixed mindset where we are seeing things in a very negative element, or we are completely overwhelmed, and we're kind of giving a shortcut in our internal self to the idea that we can be better and that we will be better and that we can get through things. And we can actually start feeling different about life. I am going to go back to the corny old Saturday Night Live show from decades ago. He's looking in the mirror and saying, oh my gosh, what do you say? I'm stronger. He goes through several things. I'm totally blanking on which ones they were, but he ends with, and gosh darn it, people like me. And it was seen as super, super cheesy. But if you look at any of these motivational speakers, or you look at any of these self-help gurus and books, they all have positive affirmations included with them, because we have to believe that we can do better before we're ever going to be able to take those steps to get there. These are just a few ideas as far as pondering and thinking and changing the mindset. I'm not going to go super in detail into them, but it's just kind of looking at, what are these experiences triggering for us? What is going on around us is huge, and it is affecting the global landscape. What does that mean for us? Is that affecting things that have happened in our childhood? Is it affecting the relationship dynamics? What is it triggering in us as far as fear, confusion, anger, frustration? Can we find moments of joy? Is it letting ourselves know it's okay, that even in the midst of a bit of chaos, that it's okay if I don't feel anything sometimes? Being able to go back to, who can I be connected to? Where am I able to get those positivities? What are my values? What means the most to me? How do I do more of those things so that I can put myself more in that positive mindset when I'm able to give myself that other emotional boost that pulls me through it? Okay, so that was element 1. Element 2 is self-care. Self-care is a lot of different things, but it comes down to making the decision that I am worthy and I deserve to be taken care of. A lot of times what I run across with people is they don't take care of themselves because they secretly just don't think that they're worth it. There are people that are more important to them, that matter more, or I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I don't have time, or it's just not possible. And they put off taking care of themselves to last when they have no energy left. And whether it's, I'm going to be trying to take care of my coworkers or my children or my family or my congregation or my community, who am I going to be there for? But you're pouring water out of a vessel that isn't getting refilled. And once we get to a certain point, the water's gone. There's nothing left in it, and it's dry. And we are no longer able to be there for any of the people that matter to us. So the basics: take care of our body. Take care of what we eat. There's nothing wrong with yummy treats. but am I getting in nutrients that I need? Whether I have to take vitamins to get them, or I'm getting in a salad a few times a week. I'm eating some vegetables. I'm getting some whole foods. I'm not just going to Burger King, McDonald's. I'm not just getting the chips as I'm driving down the road. I'm not just eating protein bars because, hey, they're healthy, so I might as well. I'm purposely planning whole foods that break down into my body the way my body was designed to work, because that is going to have a dramatic effect on our energy and our ability to gauge and interact with others. Give yourselves a news break. If you really want to stay up on what's happening, which I think is great and it's important, put a limit on it. I can watch a half an hour of the news or an hour of the news, or I watch them between certain times, or I turn off the alerts on the social media, but then I go in and I check on it at certain periods of time. Not every time I have a break or when I'm waiting to use the restroom, I'm going to pick up my phone and I'm going to see what's happening. It's okay. I'm going to regulate this for myself. I'm going to look at my social media feed and I am going to block and hide postings for people who I find myself just getting irritated whenever they put up the post, which unfortunately is happening in high emotion states. I'm going to make sure not just to get my food intake, I'm going to drink water. No one ever wants to drink water, but our body is built to need it. We are made mostly of water. It's reminding me to get a drink. It's what keeps us flooded. One of the main reasons is because we have all these stress chemicals coming out in our system. They have to find their way out. The water going through our system helps capture chemicals and helps flush it out at the end. It gives us more flexibility, decreases muscle tension. Milk is also super helpful for that, provided you're not lactose intolerant, in breaking down tension in muscles. Keeping regular sleep schedules, daily schedules, planning into those schedules enjoyable tasks, low stress, enjoyable tasks, hobbies, interests. Could be scrapbooking. I know people who love to look up ancestry information, or they like to do crossword puzzles. Or actually during the quarantine, they started selling out of actual like 1,000-piece puzzles, because it's like, okay, I gotta sit down and I gotta find a positive outlet. Adult coloring books are fun. Actually printing out good old-fashioned children's coloring book pages, also fun. Being able to step back and not take things so seriously. Adding in activity and exercise when you can. When it's feeling like 100 degrees outside, we're not as encouraged to take a hike. But when the weather cools, or in the evenings and the mornings, fantastic times to get outside when we can. Taking a breath, some deep breaths, enjoying the fresh air, looking at a change of scenery, being able to kind of pull in those activity levels. One of the things I've really taken up a lot this year has been kayaking. I love getting out on the water, being able to just be away from all the chaos. Most of the time, the cell phone signals don't work on the water, which is a fantastic byproduct. I don't have to worry about anything dinging and telling me to be alert. If you are in one of the situations where the job has changed, or it's summer break or not, teachers are off, students are off, or we're teleworking from home, identifying a schedule that works for you and being able to keep that schedule on a regular basis. Being able to identify a general time to wake up. What are some of the tasks that you like to do? When am I going to plan in the things that are important that I want to work on? Making sure that schedule has a sense of balance built into it. Setting alerts on our phone or our alarms to remind us if we're not always so good at following through with those self-care. And being able to identify, looking back, what was helpful to me, what wasn't helpful to me. I thought watching Netflix was be a great way to unwind for the evening, but you know what? I probably picked the wrong show. This was kind of had me more stressed out. I was more freaked out. Okay, I need to move to something else. I need to pick something that makes me feel a little more whole. Okay, so all that being said, we're going to start slowing down a little bit. We're going to move into mindfulness skills, which is the third quadrant of being able to have an emotionally well self. So starting with meditation. Meditation is a very common concept that most people know about. It is taking those times to pull back into ourselves, to have a kind of a timeout from the rest of life and the chaos that's going on around you, to not have to respond to other people. This could be a 5-minute activity. This could be a 50-minute activity. The most simple and basic would be picking a single object to focus on. Being able to, one of the ones I hear people doing the most, a candle, light a candle. Spend 5 minutes watching the flame, watching the way it flickers, watching the way the wax warms and either pulls around it or comes down the side. Giving yourself for those minutes, the patience to, okay, I'm going to be watching this, but as I watch it, I'm going to find thoughts are going to come in. I acknowledge those thoughts that came in. I don't beat myself up for them. I don't criticize myself for them. I watch them come in and I watch them go out. I allow myself the patience of just focusing on that one item, that one element. And I mix with it breathing, which we're going to do in about 3 minutes. I mix with it some breathing techniques that let me reset. We are so used to being in a constant fight or flight state, especially with everything that's happening. We don't realize how much we need to step into rest and digest, how much our body needs us to reset, how much our heart needs us to reset. In doing that, we need self-compassion. We need understanding that we are not perfect, that the people around us is not perfect, that the systems we're involved in are not perfect. And if we can pull back those expectations of perfection and seeing ourselves and our flaws as having things of value, we can shift our position. We can shift the impact that it makes on us. I look at shoulds, I use this as a reminder, as an acronym for a different way to approach a situation. So we're going to go with the letters: stop, holding, onto, unwarranted, long-standing, destructive self-talk. Stepping back and being able to say, okay, I didn't do that perfect. I wasn't the person I wanted to be. I wasn't the friend that I wanted to be. But I'm a human, and it's okay. And in this moment, I'm going to give myself compassion. In this moment, I'm going to give myself understanding. And maybe in the next, I apologize to someone if I need to, or I try something different. But I'm going to allow myself to be right here and take care of what I need to right here. I'm going to realize that I am not the only person who feels this way. These emotions are very important, and they're very valid, and they're very valuable. But other people get this hard on themselves too. Other people feel this overwhelmed. Identifying that decreases that feeling of isolation. Being able to, that's why support groups are so wonderful. Whether it is, right now we're not getting in face-to-face in support groups as much as we usually are, but we can get on to a Facebook group. They have that video group message stuff now, or Zoom or Google Meets. There's so many platforms that are completely free that allow us to plan times with our friends to get in and to spend time with everybody there right there together, where we're together but we're apart. Allowing ourselves to realize that it's okay. We're okay, even if we are not okay. All right, so I want everybody who's watching live or watching afterwards, we're going to do a very simple breathing exercise. And we're going to go through 4 rotations of it. First, I'm going to explain a little bit of why we're doing it. We are shallow breathers, especially when we're talkers like me. that the oxygen that comes in and out of our lungs tends to be very shallow and not in detail. We are breathing in and breathing out as quick as can be so we don't pass out. But our lungs, let's say, are about as deep as this water bottle. When we're breathing in and out, most of the time, we're taking the oxygen in and out. That's this top section. We're just in and out, and this is what we have. What stays down here is all the toxins and sediments and pollution and all of the heavy weight of what's going on around us. The reason deep breathing is recommended for stress is because we're opening up our lungs, taking the oxygen in, we're forcing it all the way into the lungs, and then we're forcing all of that old crap and toxins and junk out. And then we're pulling in more fresh oxygen, and we're continuing that cycle. When that fresh oxygen then finally refills the lungs, it has the opportunity then to move into the blood supply. And all of those nice fresh oxygen goes from the blood supply to the muscles, to the organs, to the way you respond. It gets to the brain. You're thinking clearer, you're thinking differently, you're responding differently. And people get frustrated when you say to take a deep breath, but it's to slow your system down. It purposely slows down that fight or flight. It cleans your body out of a lot of negative toxins, and then it gives the rest of your body extra fuel through clean oxygen to allow it to continue to function and to respond the way you need it to do. So one of the simplest is what we call box breathing. So we're going to do that all to the count of 4. We are going to start by inhaling through the nose. And when we fill our lungs, I'm going to count to 4. We're just going to continue to fill them till they're at capacity. We're going to hold that there for a count of 4. And then we're going to exhale from your lungs through your mouth. And we're going to push out all of the oxygen till we feel like it's like inflating and deflating a balloon. Then we rest, and then we repeat. We're going to inhaling through the nose, filling, and exhaling through the mouth. Before we do it, I'm going to say that it's perfectly natural to feel a little dizzy when you do this exercise. You're bringing fresh oxygen to your body that isn't always used to it. So we can feel a little tingly here. We can feel a little tingly here. We can feel a little dizzy. It's normal. It's natural. Your body just isn't used to whole oxygen, but it needs it. So we're going to start. I'd like everyone to start by breathing in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to hold that air. 2, 3, 4. I want you to empty that air. 2, 3, 4. Until the balloon has been deflated. We're resting. Then we're going to go back to inhaling through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Do it again. That whole process took maybe a minute, but it let your body do the beginning of a reset. Tons of different deep breathing exercises out there. Find what's comfortable, but the general basis is you want to go through the nose, unless you're stuffed up and sick, because then you don't have the option of through the nose, and out through the mouth, because then it engages the whole respiratory system. And it slowly lets you layer upon layer relax the body. As that oxygen starts getting through your system, you might work on stretching and pulling different muscle groups, because then you're encouraging the oxygen to get to those muscle groups, those tense groups that you're already kind of feeling a little stressed by. Mixing it with just some very basic stretches, or you can go all out and do yoga and full exercise activities. Stay within your physical abilities and limitations. Know what your body can handle and what it can't. Obviously, doctor guidance, especially if you're going to mix it in with active stretching, yoga, exercises. You want to just kind of have guidance. Where my limitations are? How do I build off of those to make them stronger versus things that could kind of make me in a more stressed situation? We have a few, what do we call, grounding techniques, ways to kind of pull us back in, especially when we're anxious. I'm going to go through 4 different ones, but we can mix and match. A lot of times what I like to look at is when we're trying to, especially manage anxiety, we want to do what calls into the 4 elements. We want to fall into, the air, which is the breathing routines. We want to look at water, which we'll get to in a moment. We look at earth, which is grounding, which is pulling ourselves back to the present moment. Because one of the biggest things that happens when we're stressed is our mind races. It goes in many, many, many different places. Most of them aren't necessarily good. And we have to pull ourselves back in so that till we feel a little more controlled. And then we venture in the directions that we need to go in once we have that firm ground underneath us. And the last is fire, which is our imagination. And that can be meditation activities and mindfulness-based activities as well. So when we talk about grounding exercises, I'm going to go out of order. I'm going to go with my favorite. One of the ones that we work on a lot with people is called a butterfly hug. So it is quite simply, we take our hands and we create a butterfly, right? So put your little thumbs here and you've got your little wings going. Do this with adults, not just children, but we're doing the butterfly just to kind of get you to put your hands crossed through over your chest where they're on both sides. You have lymph nodes here. You have stress points here. What you're going to do is you're going to just slowly alter back and forth. When we're stressed, we want a slow speed because our body and our brain works what's called bilaterally. We do left and right brain movements all the time. That's how we calm down. That's how we process. That's how we make sense of things. Doing a technique like the butterfly hug is creating that bilateral process, that left-right process that tells our body that we got to figure our way through things, that we're going to be okay. You can do it right here on your chest where those stress points are, but you can also do your arms. For a lot of people, this is far more comfortable and still creating that back and forth movement that is very calming. When you're doing it, a lot of times you're going to feel a release or kind of like I'm going to go with the sensations, like the sensation you get from a good hug right here. It's your anti-stress chemical, which is oxytocin. No one is expected to remember that. Getting released to your system. It is spreading through your system and letting your body know that it doesn't have to let the cortisol hijack it, that it can kind of come back to presence and feel less overwhelmed. So again, just want everyone to do this just for a few seconds, slow and steady, matching my rhythm. The slow, it tends to be a more calming. If we go faster, it causes more of a processing. Looking at how this is back and forth tapping, there's another type of tapping. There's a whole science to it that's based on acupuncture that looks at your nerve endings. And instead of using acupuncture and needles to point at things, we can actually reach some of those acupuncture points because they're so close. The nerve bundles are so close to the surface of the skin that we can tap on them and we can create a relaxation response. One of them happens to be right here across the chest, where we were using our butterfly hug. And sometimes it's going to think of it as burping the baby and a pledge allegiance, what have you. But tapping right here is a very soothing response. It's creating those positive chemicals that are letting your body know it's okay to be calm. There's several other places to utilize those. My other favorite is right here. It's karate chop. And you can tap with one hand on the other. It's a soothing sensation. There is a whole process that's more in detail, but that can lead you through all 9 points. But a couple key ones that can help are right here, right at the top of your cheekbones. There's a soothing sensation that happens right here where the sinuses are. This is an acupuncture point, as are your temples. Slow and steady, mixing with some breathing. Here, here, right on your, like the mustache line, right at the chin, and right at the chest. Easiest ones to remember, but we all sometimes have to play around to find exactly where ours are, because even though we might be all made from the same blueprint, we aren't all exactly the same. The other grounding exercises that you can try on your own when you're feeling stressed, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique is using all of your senses. Looking around you, find 5 things that you physically can see, name them. In my office, it's full of travel stuff because that's what I like to do, which I won't be doing anytime soon, but I might identify something on a shelf or a picture on the wall. I'll call it out. It may be something on the desk. Physically touching it is okay. After you pick 5 things you can see, then you move into 4 things you can touch, putting your hands at them, feeling the texture, the temperature, the size, the weight, pulling yourself into that physical sense, listening for 3 things you can hear. Right now, I can hear noisy cars out at the stoplight in front of the building. The sound machine is still on outside of my office. And I hear the slow, gentle running of the laptop itself. I can hear everything doing its movement stuff. I'm not a computer tech person. Noticing 2 things you can smell, good or bad. It's still going to pull you back to the moment. And then 1 thing you can taste. Hard candy is a great thing for self-soothing. It creates the taste, but it also a lot of times will have that not a lot of times, you have that suckling sensation that's calming yourself down, because think of the baby and the pacifiers. It's soothing to us. The sweetness can create the positive chemicals in the brain that tell you to relax. It's just layering your relaxation techniques, your mindfulness skills, one on top of another, bringing in as many elements as you need to help you, and remembering to do some type of mindfulness technique or outlet on a daily basis so that we can kind of find that new baseline to give ourselves some internal strength. Another activity I would encourage on a regular or daily basis is looking at our gratitude. We talked about affirmations and being able to pull those positive statements out about us, but also looking at the things that we're grateful for that are around us, that we appreciate, that we cherish, that we remember, even if it feels like there's absolutely nothing good going on at this moment. And think of 3 good things from the past. Think of the things you're hoping for, you're looking forward to, people that you are grateful for. Writing them down helps. Keeping a list, going back to that list, adding to it, referencing it. The darker the day seems, the more we need to create our own light. A lot of times we can obviously feel very, very overwhelmed, which could make us withdraw and not talk to people, to hit silence on the phone, to decide I'll call them tomorrow or I'll deal with that later. And having to pull ourselves back to making frequent contacts with the people that help us feel better, the people that aren't the heavyweights or the toxic environment, but it could be a text, hey, thinking about you, or sending a picture, or a 5-minute phone call, or it could be writing a good old-fashioned letter through the mail, which is this amazing concept we don't do anymore. Being there for other people if you know they're struggling, but also knowing if you're struggling, reaching out and letting somebody know. We are all so busy with our lives that it is very easy to overlook that we haven't talked to somebody recently. It doesn't mean we don't care about them. It doesn't mean they're not important. It means that life got hectic and we got sidetracked. And sometimes we need a reminder from those people that they're still there and they still could benefit from our support. And they need a reminder that we're still there, and that let them know that I just need to vent, or I just need a few minutes of encouragement, or can you pray with me? Can we talk through something? Small moments make big connections. And when people are opening up and when they are reaching out, remembering that sometimes the biggest thing you can do for somebody is simply to be there. Just because somebody is opening up does not mean you are expected to fix their problem. Sometimes they may have to talk about that same problem 20, 25 times because they're working it through in their head. Listening helps. It can be hard sometimes. It can be exhausting sometimes. But being able to kind of balance back and forth, okay, I have the emotional energy for today. I can be there. Letting them know on the days where you can't that it's not them, that you're struggling. Maybe they can be there for you. Creating balance all the way around. So this is what I'd like people to do. I'd like you to kind of take a look at this list, take a snapshot of this list of ways to check in with yourself on a daily basis. How am I doing? Simple questions. How do I feel at this moment? Honest appraisal. Is my body tight? Is it tense? Am I calm? Am I happy? Am I laughing? What is happening with me? What are positives that are going on in my life? Purposely finding those positives wherever we can find them. My positive today was getting 2 girls up and ready and out the door, and they were still giggling in the car versus cranky because they had to get up and leave. That was like the bonus of the day. I had no whining. It was a win, and I will cool me through the rest of the day. But what brought me joy today, or this week, or this month? What brought me joy 5 years ago if we're really struggling to find something? Am I taking care of my body? Am I giving enough balance? Am I reaching out to family, to friends? Am I planning in fun? Am I scheduling time for my spiritual care, for my nurturing? Am I scheduling enough quiet time, reading time? Am I putting things off? How is that affecting me? What negativity is around me? How can I use a boundary with that? How can I have somebody else help me use a boundary with that? What is something I can do today that can help me feel energized? Asking the questions, honestly asking the questions. Looking at what else can you do to grow from there, and staging the rest of your day, whether you do the check-in at the beginning or at the end, or preferably both. It's good when we keep our check-in as with ourselves as we go through the entire day, because we need it. Big reminder that we're not alone. Don't be alone. Be with people that are part of us. As much as Newcastle can be stressful, in this local community isn't always what people's ideal is. There are so many good parts of it. There are so many parts of people wanting to be there and be supports and reaching out. let ourselves purposely look for those positives. One of the nice things that made me smile today is I saw coming through town that they put fresh, beautiful flowers hanging from the baskets downtown, and they looked great. And then I saw that they posted them on social media, and it was beautiful. And it was one positive thing. It's like, look, people are trying to make this a good space. Is there something I can do to help with that? How can I be a support to help continue to shape this community into what we want it to be, not what we're just frustrated that it is? How can I be one element of that change? All right, now I'm going to go out of speaker mode, and I'm going to absolutely encourage if anybody has any questions or thoughts or feedback. As I said, I am from a counseling practice in town, but there are tons of different resources out there. Our practice is always available. We're all virtual right now. We're meeting with everybody through a Zoom-like format just because of all the CDC guidelines and regulations and the needs for safety. But in every city, in every state, there are amazing supports out there, whether it's a formal therapy, church support, Sunday school classes, a lot of them have gone virtual. There are meetups are a really cool feature. Like you can go in and you put there's meetups for everything, for grief supports, for animal lovers, and they're virtual meetups. Sometimes they're in person, but a lot of times they're virtual. It's like, where can I go to reach out to connect with people that I find helpful or useful? This is just a few apps that I find to be super helpful for meditation and mindfulness. Insight Timer is a big one that is free. You can pay for some elements, and there's classes and all those things you can do, but it has thousands upon thousands of free meditations that you can search by topic or focus, length, all of that. Relaxing Melodies is a sound machine app that you create your own relaxing sounds, which I use at night. I use it to keep my space where I'm not hearing the dog walking or the house settling. Calm Headspace, also additional ones. You can do a search online and find tons and tons and tons. One of the awesome resources I would say for mindfulness out there in meditations is Tara Brock. She has a fantastic website with tons of free information to download and meditations, and just kind of, she has the most soothing presence to kind of walk you through a lot of that. One of the things that we were talking about, and we're just kind of waiting to see, and if we have enough interest with the church, we talked about doing a 4-week meditation group where we would do every week, we would pick a different focus and a different type of mindfulness and meditation, and we would practice that. It would be virtual, but it wouldn't be an instruction based like this was. It would be everybody is on there together, and we're practicing and interacting and learning different techniques. We haven't set a date or time because we're waiting to get enough people's interest to kind of get it organized so we can kind of see what works best for people's schedules. So if anybody is interested, please reach out, send me a message, send a message to the church, and we would absolutely want to get you guys involved in seeing what we could do. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they would like to talk about? That's okay. I talked a long time. I understand.
I thought it was great, Nessa. This is Pastor Lori. I'm on my
Pastor
phone,
Lori.
which won't put my picture up, so I know how Miss Esther feels. Learned a lot. I appreciate that. Can you talk a little bit more? Earlier in this segment, you mentioned patterns of behavior that come from thinking. You talked about it almost like a comfort addicted patterns, but what might be some patterns that can come out of self-awareness on the other end of the spectrum, if you understand what I'm asking?
It's actually a really good question. Just give me a second to figure out how I want to phrase a response.
Thank you.
The way we, let's just go with something very, very simple. We talked about the way we think about things. So we talk about healthy eating, because that was a component that I mentioned earlier. Our mindset about healthy eating, whether that is about the concept of dieting or weight loss or our physical self, all of the past experiences we've had with it, the messages that we've given to ourselves of what, oh, I'm going to go on a diet again, or I'm going to eat healthy again, or I'm going to be, we have this perception, I'm going to be starving, I'm going to be miserable, I'm not going to be able to do this, I won't be able to stick to this habit or routine. If we went into some healthy eating with that mindset, and let's face it, a lot of times we do, we're self-sabotaging even before we start the process. We're deciding that this is going to be a unenjoyable process, that we're not going to feel fulfilled, we're not going to feel healthy, and then what ends up happening is we very, very, very quickly fall off of that wagon. Even if, let's say, because of those healthy eating patterns, we lost weight and we were physically, our body was starting to respond and do better, we have these mental preconceptions on what that means, what eating healthy or dieting means, that make it more difficult for us to kind of stick to those habits, even when they're helping us. If we, on the other hand, work on our perceptions and our mind, our focus on, again, with eating, on what healthy food means. If we looked at it more along the elements of, I'm taking time out for myself, I'm making myself a priority, I'm feeding myself the fuel that it needs, that, when we start ingesting those perceptions that, I can be very fulfilled and not have to go to McDonald's, I can find other ways to meet those needs, then we have more success. And instead of being on diets and repeating programs, we end up on lifestyle changes, which then have a cascading effect into other areas of our lives. But the way we think about it going into it and the messages we give ourselves going into it dramatically impact which path we're going to take. Is that kind of what you were asking?
Yes, the point you make about it being a lifestyle choice is important.
Yes. And there becomes that element with a lot of things. When we make any commitments in our life, being able to decide, do we see it as a burden and a barrier to what we would want to be doing during the rest of our time, or do we see it as an essential element that's going to be a part of a greater picture or a bigger part of ourselves?
Can you touch a little bit on how hard it's been for people to sleep, how odd sleep patterns have been during this quarantine?
All over the place. Because one of the things that happens when you don't have a schedule is, well, there's no dedicated time where I have to go to bed or I have to get up, so that it may initially start as I'm just watching TV aimlessly, but we mess up our circadian rhythms, the way our bodies and our brains are built to get rest. And when we are more stressed and kind of that motor's running, when we lay down to get some sleep, our mind is running and it's racing for the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing. And it could have started with something completely mundane and positive, but then we go off in a direction that we look at the clock and we realize it is 2 o'clock in the morning and we still haven't slept and we feel absolutely miserable. And then what happens? We start thinking about how miserable we're going to be the next day, and we start predicting how bad everything is going to go. A lot of those meditation, mindfulness types of routines and exercises are super helpful to do in the evening. Doing those before we lay down, before we go to bed, because we're shifting our thoughts. We're shifting where our mind is going. But I would encourage to pair that with decreasing screen use. People hate this requirement, who are now addicted to their phones and their TVs and their computers. But the blue light associated with these LED type of screens activates our brain and keeps us more awake. So it pulls us back from being able to kind of go into that restful sleep and be able to stay into that restful sleep at night. Generally, about an hour before bed, we should try to pull back from those elements. And I know these days they sell like blue light glasses that you can put on so that the TV isn't messing with you. And there's blue light covers you can put on your cell phones, and those are great, and that can be an additional element. But the other part that goes into that is if we pull back from those screen times that hour before bed, we're pulling back from that stimuli. We're pulling back from that next news story that might kind of set our mind into a different direction. Or right now, if we're watching TV, it's one political commercial against another, and none of them are friendly, and they kind of get you stressed out. Or, even the TV shows can get us revved up. If changing those routines up at night, picking positive things, books, devotionals are great at night, the insight timer, meditations, showers, 20 minutes before bed is kind of ideal for your body to step down into its cooling stage. There's tons of different things to help that element, but it has to be a purposeful choice to make it a priority. Because if we're not rested at night, the next day has a more difficult time being productive or feeling positive for us. But sleep has been dramatically impacted by most people, I think.
Thank you. That was helpful.